Good morning. Hi, True Helper. Hi,
Morning.
Mojo. How are you guys doing this morning? What's up, Mr. P?
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, okay. Not much. How are you?
I'm good. Gosh, today's dragging. Like, I can't wake up no matter how much coffee I drink. Ugh.
You need a nap.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Nappies are fun.
I think so.
Gingerlock's mom, good morning. So, how are you today, Mr. P?
I'm good. Nothing too special. Just hanging out.
Yeah, I was inspired to do this live today. I'm not going to talk about it because I promised you I wouldn't. But but I was definitely inspired. So,
Okay.
hi Truth, hi Manda, hi Cece. All right, so let's chat, Mr. P. What do you want to talk about first?
Okay. Obviously, we're doing the history of AA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just take it from there. So, as kind of a precursor, I'll try to kind of set it up that um, alcohol's kind of been a chemical of abuse for a lot longer than anything we've known about or heard of. Thousands of years, people have struggled with drinking too much. And throughout history, it would ruin their lives, destroy their families, things like that. And there was never, and I mean, to this day, there's no cure. There's no sort of like proven science in if you do this, you won't have a problem with alcohol anymore. The only thing that human beings have found to work is abstinence, not drinking. Alcohol is also very socially acceptable. It's in a lot of cultures. It's a rite of passage in some cultures. As a person grows up, there's a time in their life where they're supposed to drink alcohol or indulge out in alcohol. Alcohol is also a part of certain religious ceremonies. So it's kind of one of those things where it's a difficult topic at times. Um, really, what I'm trying to say here is that the necessity for AA was around for a long time before it happened. AA came to be in 1935. Leading up to that, started really by a guy named Bill Wilson. Bill was born in the late 1800s. He was actually born in a barn. Actually, his parents owned a tavern. I think he was born above it. He was in the military, and then he worked in the stock market. And he'd had some success, but every time he would have success, that would come with more drinking. And he noticed at an early age that when he drank, he felt better and he was able to socialize better, and he felt like there were all these benefits to alcohol. But he kept getting to a place where it could consume him, and he couldn't stop drinking on his own. Was really becoming the issue. He would have to. He got to a point in his life where to stop drinking, he would have to check into a hospital. Psychiatric hospitals were very different back then, and alcoholics weren't always treated very nicely. Alcoholism was very looked down upon. It people, and then still today, there's a lot of stigma, but people really looked at it as a willpower thing. You know, why can't you stop drinking? Just drink like normal men. What's wrong with you? That kind of stuff. And so Bill Wilson kept visiting this hospital with a doctor by the name of Dr. Silkworth. And he would talk to him, and they would try to figure out ways to keep people sober. You know, how do you stay stopped was kind of the big question. He had found a way to stop. It's just when he got out of the hospital, eventually, good day, bad day, didn't matter. Eventually, he would get to a place where he'd start drinking again. And at some point, oh God, this had been 1934. An old friend of his had gotten sober through a program called the Oxford Group, which was a religious program that was very similar to the 12 steps that we know today. And in fact, a lot of the stuff from their program was brought over to AA. And a lot of that was based in confession and sometimes a group confession. So you would tell the other members of the Oxford Group what your addiction was, what your problems were, and then that was supposed to kind of give you like accountability. Like, you've been honest. Hey, I'm having a problem with drinking. You guys need to know this. That way, if you see me out, you can keep an eye on me, kind of thing. And he knew his buddy, who was in this program, Ebby Thatcher was the guy's name, was a bad alcoholic and had major issues. He had actually killed someone, I believe. At one point, he wrecked into someone's house, stuff like that. I can't remember if he killed somebody or he harmed somebody very bad. But he came from a wealthy family, so he kept getting out of trouble. And he'd gotten in this Oxford group. And part of once you get sober, you have to go testify. You have to go find the worst alcoholic you know and say, hey, I'm in this program called the Oxford Group. It's really working for me, and kind of tell your drinking story and say that you're not drinking anymore. And Bill Wilson said himself that he noticed that Ebby was very different. He just didn't seem like the same person he'd known. He'd even offered Ebby alcohol. Even after this guy had said, hey, I'm trying to stay sober, Bill still offered him booze. And Ebby didn't take it. He wasn't interested. So Bill got drunk and went down the Oxford Group and was drunk in front of all these sober people. And basically he got to a point where he figured out that when he talked to alcoholics that were either still drinking or were trying to stay sober, he felt better. And before you know it, he had a month sober, which he had not had in a long time. That was not something he was really able to do unless he was in a hospital. And then he had 2 months sober. And he's realizing, wow, he's telling his wife about it. You know, their marriage was not going too hot due to Bill's drinking. There was a lot of issues. And, you know, he had sworn on every Bible and made every promise imaginable to her. He was done drinking. And this time it seemed like things were working. And comes to, I forget how long he'd been sober. I want to say somewhere between 3 and 6 months. He started working again, and he had a job opportunity in Akron, Ohio. So he caught the train down to Akron. That's back when Akron was kind of the tire capital of the world, or the rubber capital of the world. So he was going to those companies and trying to do the stock market thing with them. It did not go well. And they were upset with him. They threatened to sue him, all kinds of stuff. And Bill Wilson is coming home, walking into the hotel where he was staying at. He had enough money to either hop on a train and head back home or pay for another night in the hotel. And he's sitting there pondering that, and he looks up, and there's a bar, hotel bar. And he had a drink in months, and it scared him. You know, it scared the crap out of him, and he didn't really know what to do. And then he noticed next to the bar there was a payphone. And he thought, you know, because he's from New York, he doesn't really know anyone in Akron, Ohio. And he just realized that he had to find another alcoholic to talk to. So he jumped on the phone, or he went through the phone book and started looking at all the churches. And he started one by one calling every church in the phone book, looking for someone he could help, someone he could testify to. And it's important to say that at that moment in time, I think any alcoholic addict who's had success in a 12-step program, our life was really in his hands. You know, you imagine that you travel from New York to Akron to try to get this big job and make money and do all these great things, and it doesn't go well. And this guy had there was no such thing as a meeting. There's no therapist to go see. There was no recovery hotline. He had no way to deal with this. And he didn't walk into the bar. That's a big moment. So he gets on the phone, and he finally gets a hold of a lady and explains his story. Hey, look, I'm from New York. I'm here visiting. I'm having some struggles with alcohol in the past, but I'm sober now. I need to talk to your worst alcoholic and try to help them, because it's going to help me. And luckily, this lady said, I got just the guy for you. So come on over. So he went and met with this lady, and she introduced him to a guy who had had a lot of issues with drinking, was unable to stay sober. This guy's name was Dr. Bob Smith. And he goes up to shake this guy's hand, and Dr. Bob Smith was honest with him. He said, look, I've kind of heard it all. I've had every kind of treatment you've ever heard of. I don't think this is going to work, but I'll give you 5 minutes. And legend has it, I wasn't there, obviously, but this would have been, I want to think, end of March, early June, 1935. And allegedly, they talked for 4 hours. And Bob became to understand that Bill was just like him. Parts of their story would look very different. I want to say there was about a 30-year age gap between them. Bob was much older than Bill, but they agreed on that they were similar and that they could not stop drinking. They had this obsession in their mind, and when they would drink, they would get more thirsty. They would crave more alcohol. And Bob drank a few more times after that. And according to the history that we have, on June 10th, 1935, Bob took his last drink that morning to steady his nerves and stayed sober till the day he died. Thus was the birthplace and birthday of Alcoholics Anonymous. Wasn't called that right away. Right away, Bill told Bob, hey, look, we got to help another alcoholic right now. If you're going to stay sober, Dr. Bob, we got to find you someone to talk to. And Bob said, I know just the place. So they went up to the drunken ward of the nearest hospital, and they, told the presiding doctor, hey, here's what's going on. Obviously, Dr. Bob knew him. And he said, we need to talk to your worst alcoholic. And they took him to a guy named, what's his name? I want to say it's Bill D. He is what is also known as alcoholic number 3. Bill Wilson being number 1, Bob being 2. This was the 3rd. And same thing. Bill and Bob stood there at this guy's hospital bed and told a little bit of their story. Told a little bit about how alcohol had affected their lives. And said, hey, we're trying to stay sober today. We believe by talking to someone who's still suffering that it's helping us stay sober. Bill, the guy in the hospital bed, never drinks ever again. He stays sober. And literally the message spread from there. Now, a lot happened, obviously, between June 10th of 1935 till now. But basically, meetings in the beginning weren't meetings as we know them. Basically, they were just trying to organize people that were getting sober to try to figure out to help more people. Once they had 4 or 5 guys, hey, let's, we heard there's a guy struggling with drinking in this part of town. Let's go look him up. And they would just go person to person, trying to figure out what they could do to help this guy. Sometimes they would move that guy in with them, let him detox, and then kind of give him the speech and the spiel of AA back then as soon as he was sober enough to understand it. Pretty revolutionary, pretty big changes are happening in these people's lives, and they kind of knew they were onto something. But all they really knew back then was when they talked to someone that was still drinking or someone who had just sobered up that had major problems with alcohol, that they felt better. That's all they knew. There were no 12 steps yet. There was no book yet. Like I said, meetings were just organized to try to figure out who they were going to help next. There was no big group discussions yet. I'm sure they were having some privately, but not on the scale that we understand it today. So between, I don't know, 1935 to 1939, that's kind of what they did. They were just continuing to grow in numbers. And Bill Wilson headed back to New York. Bob stayed in Akron, obviously. And they both just started kind of their own fellowships of helping other alcoholics. Bill started to write what became the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Strange enough, the first book ever written was published on my birthday, 1939. So April 10th, 1939 was when the first book came out. And that book was written as if you were going to get it in the mail. So it kind of just gave directions on how to work the 12 steps. And the first 100 and some pages, really the first 164 pages, were just directions on how to work the steps. And then after that, it discussed some of what the family should do, what the employer should do. And then the last chapter of the first 164 is called A Vision for You. It talks about how great life can be once you're in recovery. because by 1939 they had understood that they actually had a program of recovery, and that was the 12 steps. 12 steps were, like I said, pretty much borrowed from the Oxford group. They had what were called 6 tenets, and if you were to look this up on Wikipedia or whatever, and then go look at the 12 steps, you will see what Bill Wilson did. He took kind of the basic principles of the 6 tenets and then split them up, and it became 12 steps. Step 1, obviously, in a mission of powerlessness and unmanageability on in through to step 12, where hopefully you've had a spiritual awakening. Something also important that isn't common knowledge is back then there wasn't a lot of sponsors to go around, and there wasn't a lot of people with long-term sobriety. In 1939, if you had 4 years sober, you were Bill Wilson. So a lot of the people they were with, most of them didn't have 6 months. Most people were in their first few weeks. So back then, the way they worked steps was you actually worked it in a group before you went to an actual what I'm talking about as an AA meeting. So you would a guy would sit in the front of a room, maybe in a church basement or at someone's house, and then however many new people they found would sit there, and they would go through the 12 steps with a group of people. That way, when you went to your first meeting, you actually knew what people were talking about. You understood what the 3rd step is. You understood what the real work of the 7th step was. And it was fast. These days, depending on where you live, it could take a year to work the 12 steps, depending on your sponsor. I live in Ohio, so there's still plenty of groups that do it in one day. There's people that do it in a week. There's groups that take years. They'll go through really fast at first, work the 12 steps over a few weeks, and then they'll go really slow after that. But it worked. Something was working. People were staying sober. Now, relapse is a part of some people's story, not everybody's, but they also kind of discovered once people stopped working the program, or maybe they got back to work and weren't able to be as involved as they were, they might end up drinking again. So they were kind of just trying to document and catalog everything that happened. But the book was actually originally also made, their goal was to get enough money to where they could build what they called alcoholic hospitals, which today we know as treatment centers. They knew that the treatment of alcoholics and drug addicts was not too good in hospitals. And even me, I know people that got sober in the 1960s that got sober chained to a wall. So even up till then, people didn't really know how to treat an alcoholic or an addict as they're trying to get sober in a hospital setting. So that was the goal. They were going to try to make enough money off the book. They would then build these string of hospitals across the country, and then they would be able to, really help people, really get them in there. And they had sort of also a program of detox that they did. I know a little bit about the history on that, but it's a little bit more hard to find. So the big book did well. So AA's born in 1935. By 1945, the program had grown a lot, but not in the way we know it. There was a big boom in the 1980s, mostly, I think, because of treatment centers, but a lot more people started showing up to AA meetings. These days, I mean, if you look it up, it'll claim a million members worldwide. It could be a lot bigger than that. I don't know. But that's sort of the shortened version of the history of AA. It came out of a necessity to help people that couldn't stop drinking, couldn't stop using. I am one of those people. The first time I walked into an AA meeting, I thought, what the hell is this? They said, is this anyone's first meeting ever? And I said, yeah, I'm Brandon. I'm an alcoholic. And they got up and clapped. I'm like, this is crazy. So are you with me, Sarah?
I'm with you. I'm just
okay.
listening.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear you. Okay.
I'm typing in chat.
Gotcha. So I knew, so I went to my first meeting when I was 20, and I didn't find recovery on anything like a steady basis till I was 23. So from 20 23. For 3 years, I went in and out of rehab. I went in and out of jail. I was an outpatient. I saw different doctors, different lawyers, judges. I did all of that. And nothing worked. The medication didn't work. I would try, I'll just get a really good job. If I just had a good job, or, if I had the right girlfriend or whatever, I would look for all these things in my life, but nothing worked. I would always drink again. And every time I drank, I would wind up using other substances. I would wind up with a needle in my arm. And it took me a lot of years to figure out that it was the alcohol. The alcohol was kind of the catalyst for me for negative behavior. And in 2009, I had what I hoped to be sort of the grand finale of my drinking was to go to prison. And I got out, and my mom came and picked me up from prison, because that's, what moms do, I guess. I don't know. And we were driving home, and she said, your cousin's coming over. He wants to talk to you. I said, oh, okay. And I know this guy real well. I grew up with his kids. It's actually my mom's first cousin. So he's a bit older than me, but I remember thinking maybe he wants to take me to a baseball game or church or something. I didn't really know why he wanted to talk to me. And then she said, and he's bringing his friends from AA. And I said, okay. But in my mind, I was like, oh, God, I don't want to hear this crap. For the most part, a lot of my in and out of recovery was in a different fellowship. It was not in AA. I had been to AA meetings on and off for all those years, but I was really mostly hung out in a different fellowship. And we got home, and I'm at my mom's house, and I'm actually just there grabbing a few things. She's going to take me over to a halfway house. And these 3 guys showed up, and they were just talking to another alcoholic. They came in and did what we're supposed to do. They came in and talked about their drinking and their drug use. And they said, yeah, we don't drink anymore. We go to meetings in the area, and we would like it if you started hanging out with us. We think maybe it could help you. And I haven't had a drink since. This is 11 years later. Just because
you did everything by the book when you first.
Oh yeah. I got real lucky. I got in a group that was very in your face, very old school recovery, old school AA. And it saved my life. No joke. It was a group where you must have a sponsor. You must work the 12 steps. You must be involved with service. And if you don't like that, you should probably go to a different meeting. Looking back, it was pretty hardcore, and not everywhere's like that. A lot of places are a lot more relaxed, but these guys were, they didn't want me to die. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought they were mean and old and grumpy. But no, they'd seen enough young people come through there and not make it that they did a really good job with me. Really good job. I was allowed in people in AA's houses before I was allowed in my own mother's house. Put it that way. I spent my first few holidays with people in AA because I wasn't welcome at my mom. It's not that I wasn't welcome. It's that she didn't know what I was going to do. I had a track record of every time I would get out of jail or an institution, I would drink again. And then we don't know what Brandon's going to do. Is he going to steal? Is he going to overdose? What's going to happen? So I wasn't welcome there, but I was welcome in the homes of people in AA. And they loved me until I could love myself. By the time I would say the program really started working about a year and a half. Looking back, I didn't have much in terms of wanting to drink or use. I attributed that to my higher power. But truth be told, man, I'd worked steps a few times. I'd started sponsoring people, and I was very active in service. And we took that book I was talking about, that big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and we went through it and we followed the directions the best we knew. And I had a change within me. I had a spiritual awakening. I had some spiritual experiences along the way, and I continue to have those, but something changed within me. And I attribute everything I have today, everything positive in my life, is a direct result of working the 12 steps. I believe that. And yeah, it it worked. I don't know how. I was, like I said, I didn't want to talk to these guys.
If people knew who we were before, they would understand. You know what I mean? Because we completely changed when we went into recovery and learned a different way of life.
But I mean, God, even thinking about who I was, it's like a different person. I feel like I'm
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about somebody else because there's none of that. I have no interest in. All I used to do was go and steal from stores all day so I could get enough heroin and booze so I could be comatose. That's it. That was my entire life for years. And then in and out. And then if I wasn't doing that, I was in rehab or jail. That's hell. That's a miserable, miserable place to be. But I had gotten myself to that place and I didn't know how to get out of it. I thought I did. Like I said, I thought right job, right girlfriend, that'll work. If I go back to school, maybe that'll work. And I kept drinking. Every time I turned around there, I'd be drunk again. And didn't even know how it happened. Just boom.
True Helper's in the chat, and he said, I can easily picture Brandon leading any type of recovery care group. You've done that for a long time, haven't you, Brandon?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was a big part of what we did when I came in. There wasn't a lot of, some groups you go to, they'll tell you, hey, you got to wait till you're a year or 2 years sober to lead a group, stuff like that. That was never the case with me. I was leading groups by the time I had about 6-7 months. And that just depends on where you live in the country. Other parts of the country, it's not like that. It just depends. In Dayton, Ohio, the number usually here is a year. Once someone's a year sober, their sponsor will then say, yeah, they're good to lead a group. But I think I gave my first lead when I had 6 months.
Truth wants to know if we got sober together. We didn't. Brandon has many years on me.
Yeah, I think I had 6 or 7 years when I met Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah was relatively new, which, like I've said in the past, was kind of frowned upon by people. They didn't like that I was dating someone that was new in recovery, but I fell in love, man. What do you obviously it worked out, and obviously, to be honest, I think people thought I was just trying to get laid. Sarah's a hot chick. I think that's what people thought. That's what people thought, and that was not
in our
the
little
case.
groups. They did, yeah.
Yeah, that's what people thought. I was just trying to get laid, whatever. No, to be honest, I fell in love with Sarah in an instant. My brain said, that's the girl you're going to marry. And
now, remind you, I'm sitting in a psych ward.
Yeah, and I'm
a
working
recovery
there.
Psych ward.
And I'm working there. So I'm like, oh no, I can't think that. That's bad. Oh my God, what am I thinking?
It was a detox. It wasn't like a psych ward. It was a detox. And it was a lockdown detox.
Yeah, it worked out.
did.
That's a long, long story, but it worked out.
Brandon looked at me and he said, you're homeless, aren't you? I said, no, I live at my grandparents' house. He said, so you're homeless, aren't you?
Yeah, she didn't like me so much at first.
No, I didn't.
But just like the history I described, people come into recovery for different reasons. And if they're willing to take a program of action of some sort, these days for everybody, it's not the 12 steps. Some people do a combination of church and church-based recovery and therapy. And there's a lot of different varieties. Because of the birth of AA and that history, a lot of other things have been developed. My experience is with the 12 steps. That's what worked for me. If other people do it other ways, good, great. Whatever you can find that works is key.
True Helper just said that in New Jersey, where he lives, you must be certified in order to become a sponsor. Does it vary from state to state?
Oh, yeah. I've heard that before. And so there's one group like that here, and that's how they do it. The group decides when you're ready.
Have a good day, True Helper.
There's also a group here that you can start sponsoring people with 3 days sober. Because that's kind of how it worked. Remember when I was talking about you used to have to go to a group before you went to a meeting and you worked the 12 steps? Mm-hmm. So like I said, there wasn't a lot of sponsorship to go around. So basically, if you had 2 days, or 3 days, you were responsible for the guy that had 1 or 2 days. There just wasn't a lot of people going around that had long-term recovery. All they knew was to help another alcoholic or addict. And one thing that's true, or that I've seen throughout AA history and a little bit in their literature that works, when all else fails, when nothing works, this person has worked the 12 steps, they drink again. Well, they got a different sponsor, did it again. They just keep drinking. When all else fails, intensive work with a newcomer, which means someone that's new to the program, will help them stay sober. I've seen that work for people. So, yeah, like you said, I've definitely seen groups where you got to be certified by the group. You got to get an okay from a sponsor and a grant sponsor and that kind of thing. But also down here, there's groups where within a few days you're sponsoring people. So it's one of those things, it's different state to state, it's different city to city. And like where I'm from Ohio, so this is where AA started. So you could definitely find like old school kind of AA, and you can find more new school stuff that incorporates a lot of different elements from different things, and you can find everything in between. It's kind of about what works for the individual and kind of just where you land. I just landed in a place where it was a lot of people with 30 and 40 years sober. And a lot of these guys were in their 70s and 80s. And, I'm this young kid fresh out of prison. They took care of me. They really looked out for me. They took me to baseball games and took me out to coffee and did all kind of the stuff that you do with someone that's new in recovery. And here I am. Now, I got sober with a group of about 8 people, 8 or 9, and 2 of us have remained sober. Actually, my cousin, the guy I talked about, he's one of them. Everybody else either went back out. Some of them are sober again and are doing well, and then some are no longer with us. They have passed away due to alcoholism and addiction. I did have one buddy when I was 6 years sober. This is actually right before I met Sarah. I want to say, yeah, he had about 6 years. He passed away due to cancer. He died sober. So, it's one of those things.
Mojo.
So, yeah, that's kind of the shortened version of the history. Did that make sense, Sarah?
Oh, it absolutely did. Now, you've been to Akron at his house, haven't you?
Yes, several times. I want to say in 2014, I was there 4 times at his house, Dr. Bob's. I've been to Founders Day, which they do every year. I mean, obviously with the plague going around, they're probably not doing it as much. But yeah, his house is Dr. Bob, the co-founder of AA. His house is an historical monument that's open, kind of like a museum. You walk through and it shows the table where they used to drink coffee, and you can actually go upstairs into Bill Wilson's bedroom. When he would come stay with Bob, he had his own bedroom. And I've actually taken a 3rd step prayer there with my sponsor. I've taken a 3rd step prayer there with the guy that took me to my first meeting. Guys, I sponsor. That was a
spiritual journey.
I cried. Yeah, it was very emotional. Yeah. It was just very emotional to think, this is where it all started. This is the guys that they did not have a meeting. They didn't have anyone to call, and they figured this out on their own, be it their own sheer want to help people and maybe some help from their higher powers. Who knows? But yeah, to be up there and just it's a vibe. It's a feeling up there of just wow. Mm-hmm. This is if you're an alcoholic and addict, this is a very historical place to be. But yeah, I've been there a bunch of times. It's a neat place.
Yeah. Amanda, when you talk about the meetings and the coffee and donuts, when I first got sober, maybe like the first or second time, who knows, I used to get so mad because I could never understand why they made me refill the coffee and do the coffee maker. I'd get so mad about that. They'd always pick like the newest person to go and do the coffee.
Yeah. That's how it's supposed to be. It's service work. It's I think the idea of that is getting out of yourself, doing something for other people, and I was too when they started making me coffee. I don't think I was like mad they made me do it. I was so nervous I was going to screw it up.
Me too, actually. But I was so mad nervous too because I was like, why are they picking on me to do it? Like every time. And I finally got it. So it's just one of those little memories. And there's so many. Oh, let's talk about the difference between AA and NA.
Yeah. So NA's big around here as well in Dayton, Ohio. Different parts of the country, it's not like that, but NA's huge fellowship. Basically, in the 1970s, there was a AA meeting in Southern California that they had kind of the rougher cases, people that weren't just into alcohol, but they were also into drugs and in living in the streets and those kind of thing. And one of their members of this group that was sort of a hardcore AA meeting for the, like I said, the tougher cases, the people that were struggling to stay sober. One of those guys figured out a different program that adopted the same kind of 12 steps, just kind of changed the wording around and, started Narcotics Anonymous. And they've had amazing success since then. I think they have really cornered the market in terms of literature. They've got an amazing library of stuff to read. I've read not all their books, but most of them, and just good stuff. They got great writing. If anybody picks up like the big book Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not easy to read. It's not a book that you're just going to pick up like a novel and read. It's kind of it's a difficult read, and I think just the way they spoke back then was different. The cadence in which they spoke, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's like the words fall off in weird places, and it's just not. It's considered a textbook, so it's not a book to sit there and read at your leisure. Being it's considered a textbook, it's to be studied and hopefully followed if one can. Whereas Narcotics Anonymous really put a lot of focus into their literature, making it easier to read and more accessible. But yeah, I think the major difference for me is, in their, okay, so the first step in AA is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and then our lives become unmanageable. Theirs is we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and then our lives become unmanageable. Addictions is a wide topic. You can apply just about anything to that. Anything from food to gambling to whatever. So they're also a lot more welcoming in terms of if somebody's got multiple addictions. There's certain parts of the country and even in Dayton where, if someone's alcoholic addict, members of the meeting don't like that. And the issue I have there is there's not a lot of pure juicers around anymore. People that just drink, a lot of people these days, or at least from what I see, are doing multiple substances. So sometimes I feel like that kind of hurts AA, that they're telling people, hey, you need to go to NA instead of coming here. But that's just how it is. But yeah, no, NA is great. I haven't been to an NA meeting in a long time, but every time I've gone, I always hear stuff that's just, I need to hear. Oh, and they will testify. They are brutally honest. And it's, sometimes a lot of my buddies are sober a long time. So when we go to a meeting, we're just talking about normal stuff and how to stay sober. If a newcomer's there, obviously we talk a little different. But, in NA, you're going to hear people that are going through it. You're going to hear people that it is life or death on a daily basis. And I need to hear that stuff. I need to be reminded, like I said, I'm a different person today. And I forget really easy how bad it was, what it was really like. It's not that long ago, that I was living in a van. I've slept under a bridge before. I've lived in the streets. When I'm living in a house with cars in the garage, it's hard to remember that sometimes because my life has changed so much. So I got a lot of respect for NA. I got a lot of good buddies over there that do the real good work of recovery. And yeah, they're awesome.
CCK says the 12 steps and 12 traditions is easier to read.
Oh yeah. I love that book. Also, that was also a book that I was raised on. There was a 12 and 12 meeting every Tuesday that I used to go to in West Carrollton, Ohio. And man, not only is that book easier to read, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of good stories and just a lot of good insight. I know some sponsorship families, they will have you read. So if you're on your second step, you will also read every night the second step of the 12 and 12 as you're preparing to take that step with your sponsor. And I think that's helpful. I don't usually do that with my guys at first, like guys I sponsor. We just stick with the big book. But that was something my first sponsor did, and it really helped me. I might want to consider doing that again. That was pretty helpful. But yeah, great book. God, I got to admit, I probably need to read that. I haven't read that in a while.
I love people that come into the chat. They're knowledgeable. I need to help you figure out how you can see the chat so you can read it too.
Yeah, that'd probably help.
I think AA and NA has helped us both. I don't go to NA meetings like I should, but see, Brandon, he likes more of AA, in which I like more of NA.
Yeah, it's kind of a personal preference. I mean, it's just that's
Mm-hmm.
like I said, that's where I landed.
I always
And
felt uncomfortable in AA because I couldn't really relate to the alcohol, and I didn't want to say, "Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a junkie." I, you
yeah,
know,
I'm with you. No, I'm with you 100%. Like I said, I really felt out of place at first in AA. I thought, like, what am I doing here? But when I started talking to my sponsor and I started looking at my own story, alcohol was always on the table. I drank every day. It was more in the end, probably the last 2 years that I was doing my thing. Alcohol was like sleeping medication for me. I would, I mean, I was on enough drugs to where I could take an entire bottle of Tylenol PM and I still might not fall asleep. And if I'm in withdrawals, it's even worse.
no,
But alcohol would always help me fall asleep. So I drank every day. And like I said, I realized that every single time that I would end up in trouble, that I would end up back in jail or in rehab, it was because of my drinking. So it was very important for me to be around people that were serious, real deal, pure juice or alcoholics, to be reminded that, and in speaking about the big book again in the history, one of the big things that they hammered is staying away from that first drink. If you can stay away from that first drink, you can stay sober. And that's key. And I had heard that before, but the idea of it didn't really ring through to me until I was probably a year or two sober. Because it's not the caboose of the train that kills you. If you're standing in front of the train, it's the first one that gets you. If I don't want to drink 12 beers, I better just not drink that first one. And
yeah,
it took me a while to get that concept, but yeah, I never had a success in NA, but then again, I never really worked the program.
right.
So I can't say, oh, it sucks or, oh, it's great. I don't know. I never did it. A lot of people around here do NA and the 12, the step working guide. There's different varieties of that as well, and different styles of doing that in terms of working the steps. But yeah, I've got buddies and a lot of people that Sarah runs with, and Sarah knows that, clean a long time, and have amazing stories.
Oh gosh,
So,
yeah.
so one of those things.
I remember you giving your lead one time, and I was in tears. It was so good.
Yeah, it's in front of about 300 people.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was a little nervous.
that was a great
You
night.
you won you won both raffles.
Yeah, how does that
Yeah.
even happen?
Yeah, they had a 50-50 raffle. She won that, and they were giving
Hey,
away
Pepper.
a poster or something like an Ohio State football picture. And it's
Mm-hmm.
on our wall right out here. Yeah. She won both raffles went to my girlfriend at that time. It's kind of interesting.
That was a great night. We had so
Yeah,
much fun.
it was nice. Yep. That was
Yeah,
very nice.
some people think that, like AA is so boring, and that's just not the case. There's a lot of fun that goes in with it, and there's so many good people that want to get to know you, that want to reach out and help. And it like Brandon said, it's life-changing. It helped change mine.
Yeah, just the support alone, just the people. If the only benefit I ever got from AA was friends, and just people to hang out with, people to, I'm not into sports, but occasionally, like, I'll get invited to go to a football or a baseball game just to do stuff like that, go bowling, go out to eat. If that's all I ever got, AA's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is so much more. There is so much more. And if the only benefit I ever got was just not drinking, yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, I'm a guy who I drink and use drugs every single day of my life for years. It wasn't a weekend. I didn't just have a crazy summer. I had issues for years. And I had doctors tell me I was going to die. I had judges tell me they were going to lock me up. And I kept drinking. And I could not figure out why. Now, I thought I had a disease. I kind of knew what that meant, but I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't stay stopped. And finally, When I actually went and worked the 12 steps with a sponsor, my life changed. That was the only thing I did different. I went in, like I said, I went in and out of AA, I went in and out of jails and rehabs for years. All I did different in 2009 was I got a sponsor and we worked the 12 steps. And it worked. When I was 6-7 months sober, I lost the obsession to drink and use. It was removed from me and it hasn't been there ever since.
That is a miracle because, you know, I never thought I'd understand that, you know, because I relapsed when we first got together and I just kept thinking, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get sober and stay sober. And then one day, you know, after I had been sober for so long, I didn't want to use, like it was lifted from me. And, you know, I mean, I have my days where I think, man, this is really hard, but I just move on and do different things and I don't think about it. And I don't use. That's the main thing.
I have not had the conscious thought to drink and use for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Whether it's a good day or a bad day, whether someone has a baby, whether someone close to me passes away, no matter what, my brain doesn't say we should have a drink or we should take some pills. My brain doesn't do that anymore. And that's the big one of the.
You're cutting out, Brandon.
Yeah, my phone. Someone called. I had to decline it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know, the miracle of recovery is real and alive. I know with everything going on in the world, it's a little different right now. I know meetings are a little bit harder to get to, but they're still out there and it still exists. Drugs and alcohol haven't gone away. So recovery's here. It's alive. And I think it's just a matter of what do you want to do? You know, if a person wants to continue to drink and use and live that way, that's up to them. But if they want to try something different, if they're in a place in their life where that makes sense, there's options.
Callie. There's absolutely options. And there's so many people that are in recovery that want to help. So it's not a burden if you go and ask them for help. They don't think of it as a burden. They actually want to help.
Yeah. That's part of the incredible thing too. You know, there's rooms full of people that will do anything to help you.
Oh, yeah,
Anything.
Absolutely. Like you can call them at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and they wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's what I tell my new guys when someone's newly sober. I always tell them I sleep with the phone right next to my head. And if I don't call you right back, I'll call you as soon as I see it. I also usually, if someone's new in recovery, I give them my address.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, if all else fails, just come over. You feel like you're going to drink or use, just come over. You don't even got to call. So, and that's not, and to be real, it's not because I'm a nice guy. It's not because I'm this or that. It's because it worked for me. It's because people did that for me. I can never, ever, there's no way to possibly repay the debt of the amazing things that happened in my life for free and for fun just because I went to some meetings, just because I sat with a sponsor and read this book. All I can do to try to return that favor is offer myself to new people in recovery and try to be a good person.
And that's why it works, because you have people that just want to keep paying it forward because somebody helped them.
Yeah. Yeah. Forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know guys with, I definitely know one guy with 40 years sober who goes to a meeting every day. Every day. And he's always got new guys in the car with him. He's in his 70s. And there he is driving around some kid, you know, some 20-year-old kid who's trying to get off dope and, you know, taking them to meetings and saying, hey, I'm here for you. What can I do to help? Because he knows the miracle in his life. It's a gift. Obviously, I know that was kind of a condensed version of the history of AA. It would probably take me an hour to do the whole thing just by itself in terms of going through each detail, but we kind of hit the bullet points, and, you know, all because two drunks who nobody thought was going to make it got together and said, let's try to help each other. My life has been saved. Sarah's life has been saved, and so many more.
Yeah. You did very well, Brandon. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. Thought you might like it. You've heard it before.
Yeah.
Not the first time you've heard me give that spiel, but
I love it when you do, though. Like when I first met you, I was like, wow, this guy's really cool. I didn't like you at first because you wasn't too nice to me, but then again, I wasn't very nice to you. But you grew on me, and here we are.
yes, here we are. So, yeah, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else? Is there any questions or anything, honey?
No, not really. Sorry I didn't give a whole lot of attention to the chat. I'm not good at multitasking. Like when I'm talking, I'm so not good at it. People are saying thank you, Brandon.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. We try to. Sarah and I were talking. We're trying to do this more often, I guess. Is that right, Sarah?
I'd like that. Absolutely. You know, I don't want to continue just doing like all drama on my channel. I think this is important and it can help people that are out there that still struggle. You know, I mean, here we are, you know, two people that have lost everything just to gain it back.
Yeah.
What are you
Sorry,
doing?
I was taking a drink of water. Sorry. You went silent as soon as anyway. But, you know, I don't know. I can't imagine my life without it, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I'd be sober if it wasn't for you, actually. You did Captain Obvious. Thank you, honey. I really don't, because there's so many times that you was there for me and you would just, you know, kind of talk to me and kind of be a sponsor, really.
Well, yeah, I think we all do that with each, you know, in terms of, it's like I have one sponsor that I work steps with, but I got many people that I use as spiritual advisors. Obviously, it's easy for us because we're married, but yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. We all kind of, I mean, trust me, I've had guys come to me that were sober a lot longer than I was, come to me struggling, and I was shocked. I'm like, why are they asking me? You know, what the hell are they asking me for? There's a guy with 20 years, but I just happened to be the guy in front of him when he was going through the issue, and that guy called me the next week and said, "Hey, remember when we talked? That really helped me. It saved my life. Thank you." So we don't always know, you know.
Yeah, Cece wants to know if we can talk about the steps next time.
Yeah, I can do them all at once, or I can go through each one however you want to do it.
Yeah, Brandon's real good with the step work. Me, not so much, but Brandon is. He's on point when it comes to working the steps. You taught me how to do it. Yeah.
That's something I know how to do. Like I said, I ran around, and I mean, I still, due to the plague, I don't see him as much, but yeah, I always kind of ran around with what we would call like big book culture, or people that are really involved in the 12-step work. So that's something I have to live. You know, it's just a big part of my life. So yeah, we can do that next time.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, well, I think we'll kind of cut it here and get ready to do some lunch. What do you think about that?
Perfect. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, you guys. I really appreciate all of you. Sabrina, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really do. You guys are so kind, and I love you guys. I really do. Like, you know, Brandon and I, we like to come on here and just kind of hang out and share things that we know and that we've been through. And so I'm really grateful you guys are here to listen to us. Mojo and Callie, Amanda, Truth, Cece, you guys have a great day. Talk to you guys later. Bye.